Hello and welcome to India's World. One of the reasons why Donald Trump has won the next US presidency is that he tapped into the anxieties of ordinary Americans about the direction of US role in the world. He has blamed the previous US administrations for creating a mess in West Asia by toppling the relatively stable governments of Saddam Hussein in Iraq and Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. He has blamed outgoing President Barack Obama for the creation of the Islamic State through his hasty withdrawal of troops from Iraq, thereby creating a vacuum which allowed the Sunni extremists to expand. Trump has also projected the US as a victim of its freeloading alliance partners and has come out strongly against entangling the United States in pointless wars abroad, especially in West Asia. While he is opposed to the ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, he wants to join hands with Russia to fight it. He wants to upend the Iran nuclear deal and play the honest broker between Israel and Palestine while claiming that he loves Israel. The questions that we are asking today of our experts are, can Trump bring peace to West Asia? And if so, how is his West Asia policy likely to evolve? To discuss this and more, we have with us Ambassador R.S. Kalha, a distinguished diplomat. He was Secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs and Ambassador of India to Indonesia and Iraq. We also have with us Professor A.K. Pasha. He teaches at the Center for West Asian Studies, School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University. And we have with us Dr. Waiel Awwad. He's a Syrian journalist based in Delhi. He's the South Asia Bureau Chief of the Syrian Arab news agency SANA. I welcome you gentlemen to this discussion. Ambassador Kalha, let me begin with you. Is there any reason for the countries of West Asia to be enthusiastic about the Trump victory?
Well, not entirely. But, you know, let's also remember that politicians, when they are standing for election, they have a rhetoric which is rather of the volatile kind. And once they are in office, their views change. In fact, as a cynic remarked, a successful politician is one who can successfully live down his campaign promises. So I think we will have to watch when President Trump takes office as to what kind of policy that he follows. Because after all, the parameters of United States policy, their strategic interests and their dealings with various countries like Israel, Saudi Arabia, these don't change, because they will remain. And therefore, to that extent, when President Trump does decide to take an initiative in West Asia, he would have to take into account US strategic interests. And therefore, there may be some changes, perhaps to cater to his electorate, which was rather very volatile in its views, or he may then defer to US strategic interests and carry on as President Obama has done.
Okay. Professor Pasha, the electorate may have had volatile views, but Trump's rhetoric on West Asia was anything but volatile. In fact, it looked like as if he was trying to calm the region by pulling the US out of unnecessary entanglements. So do you think he will try to end the strife in this region, which many believe in any case has been there because of US military interventions?
You know, the basic and fundamental point on which Trump appears to have won the election is the domestic economic situation there.
No, that I agree with. I'm really talking about...
That is linked to the overall commitments the United States has in our 128 country. And out of the 25 countries in West Asia, 3 non-Arab, Iran, Turkey, Israel, plus 22 Arab countries, the United States has forces in over 15 countries, hundreds and thousands, and naval facilities in Bahrain and all. So the United States is very deeply involved in most of the countries here. And Trump has said on record that these are all futile. Our commitments, we are taking care of other countries' commitments. There is no need for us to expend our resources for someone else's security. For example, on the Gulf, he said, you know, we are not dependent on Gulf oil or gas. It is Japan and Europeans and others. Why should we pay for their security? For example, on the IS, he said, you know, let the Russians and the Iranians and others fight. We should not get involved as deeply as we should, or even in the case of Iraq. So there is this perception that the involvement of the United States in this region has drained the American economy. Trillions of dollars from Afghanistan.
$19 trillion.
Yeah, it's a huge, huge commitment. And the Obama administration had told the American public that he will withdraw but it has not happened so. Even in Iraq, they are still involved in the situation from Iraq spilled over into Syria. So the commitment to the old allies like Egypt and Israel and the new commitments, the financial obligations are increasing. So in that way, Trump would try to withdraw and de-escalate the situation to a great extent.
Okay. Dr. Awwad, how would Trump change US policies so that its allies in West Asia shoulder political, economic and monetary responsibilities for their own security?
I think the United States is a victim of its own foreign policy toward West Asia. In fact, what we have seen, the chronology of the repeated American presidents in the area, they have always been focusing on oil and gas and Israeli-centric. So as long as they...
But today they don't need to send
well, that
to
is
be
the changes here. But you still have... No, the oil will remain. There's no question about it. Because it's not American who benefiting, it's the petrodollars which benefiting. In fact, the whole fighting in the Arab world is a gas dollars, where the Americans are also trying to price the gas for this reason. That therefore, Trump, maybe the taxpayer in the United States will be affected because he knew that they're all paying for Israel arsenals in the region.
But how does he get countries in West Asia, US allies, to pay for US involvement in West Asia?
They're already paying. He knows that they are paying 1/3 of the cost. He said he wanted 2/3 of the revenue of the Saudis to be paid. So therefore, the arm industry will be more than happy to see more interfighting among the Arabs as long as the American companies are gaining money. So for Trump, maybe he knows that the Americans are losing their influence in the region, that the players of the United States are doing the mess in the region and the havoc. So therefore, he might tell them, you bear the cost, because we are not interested to put the boot on the ground.
Okay. So quickly, Trump has come out against regime change in West Asia. So can we conclude that one strand of his West Asia policy might be, let the traditional regimes continue as long as they keep terrorists at bay and they're stable?
Well, I think it will largely depend upon what attitude they have towards the United States. I think more than anything else, he would probably judge them and by their actions. And particularly, I would like to emphasize, you see, the Saudi link is a very strong link with the United States. And it pervades the entire administration. It pervades the Pentagon. It has what they call links with the military-industrial complex. So it's not easy for any president to come and simply say that, you know, because I don't want to have further links and therefore you start moving away. Similarly, now he has said that he would like to break the nuclear deal with Iran. Is it possible?
We're going to discuss that in a bit.
That's right. So these are factors which you will have to take into account.
Okay.
It cannot be just because he said so during his election time that this will translate itself into policy. I think you will see a very different Trump than what you saw during the election period.
All right. We need to take a break at this point. We'll be back again to discuss Trump's election rhetoric and whether it gets converted into foreign policy. Stay with us. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're discussing the possibility of a new foreign policy emerging under the Trump administration once President-elect Donald Trump takes over, and its impact on West Asia. Dr. Awwad, can we expect the emergence of a new order in West Asia underpinned by an alliance between the United States and Russia?
Well, I think there should be an alliance, because 2254 UN Security Council resolution speaks of the finishing of the IS from Syria and Iraq, speak of the Syrian reconciliation before the 2017. So if we can see some kind of alignment, approachment between the two countries in fighting terrorism, especially the Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda and IS, yes, we might think. But I think what we are heading is from an Obaism to Trumpism. So Trumpism's era going to be like the American came to the Middle East with Obama to cosmetic surgery to change the image. Now we don't know Trump what he is bringing in his basket, because they are after all the Republicans, which have the more influence and more toward the Israelis policies. So therefore, if they are going to do a true broker, a peace broker, then we might see some kind of calm. But I don't think, and there are lots of pessimistic experts like me who doesn't believe that Trump will make any major changes in the region.
Okay, Professor Pasha, even if there is a US-Russia deal, will the deal stick in Syria? And what would it mean for the Islamic State as well as the so-called moderate rebels in Syria?
You see, the moderate rebels are supplied, as you know, from Saudi Arabia, Turkey and Qatar and others. The Saudis are quite nervous at the possible engagement between Russia and America under Trump. But ultimately, I think it is the American view which would prevail, and that is to disengage and leave the room for the Russians and the Iranians and other local players like Iraqis, Hezbollah, to finish off the Islamic State, which Trump would be more than happy to see on its own through regional partners disappearing. But the larger implication of this is the alliance of Russia, China, Iran, Iraq, Syria and Hezbollah, which is terrifying for the Saudis. And the Saudis know that after the Arab Spring, various developments have been targeted at them through Bahrain, through Yemen and various other places. So the one side of the picture is that it shows semblance of normality or stability once the Iraqi Islamic State is tackled in both this Syria and all. But on the other hand, you have threats to American allies. Probably they will implode domestically and regionally also. Okay. And we have the more important question of Palestine also.
Yeah, we're coming to that. But let me stay on Syria for a bit. Ambassador Kalha, from what I'm hearing, it seems that Trump would not be able to end the war in Syria. Do you think he'll be able to end the war in Syria? Or do you think that the interests of Turkey, the interests of Saudi Arabia, the interests of Iran will not let peace come to Syria?
You see, unless there is a reconciliation between the Sunni and the Shiite sort of groups, that would be a major factor which will play. And secondly, don't forget, there is this regional conflict which is also going on, which is between the Saudis and the Iranians. Yeah. How that plays out would also be a factor in his calculations. But you know, in America, the policy very largely is also made by the military-industrial complex.
Absolutely.
Now, what they will think about their prospects, their business prospects, their links with the Saudis, the sale of arms, etc., will be a major factor. Because I don't think, in spite of all the rhetoric that he had when he was as a candidate, it is going to affect this aspect. And the pressure on him will mount, particularly not only through the business-industrial complex, but also there is a very large Republican, majorities now, both in the Senate and the House of Representatives. And they have some very strange views, which you'll also have to take into account.
Absolutely. Do you want to add something to this?
I think there are two issues which is very important to understand that Trump. First, Trump is not for a regime change policy which was followed by the Obamas and Clinton was going to carry on with the legacy. The second part, which is also equally important, is who will be his team. We will know what kind of future of the Middle East, because the moment he starts electing all those warmongers or other people or those right-wing extremists or new cons of the United States, then we'll have a problem.
Okay. Professor Pasha, let's leave Syria for a bit. Trump has said that while he loves Israel, he's not in favor of US taking sides between the Israel-Palestinian conflict. He says only a neutral stance will allow you to be a credible negotiator. Now, that was unorthodox rhetoric, because in US elections in the past, we have seen Republican, Democratic presidents vying with each other to say who's more favorable towards Israel and whom does the Jewish lobby favor. So this was quite unorthodox. But what would happen once he comes into White House?
No, there are two possibilities. One is what he has promised. Like, for example, he has promised to shift the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which has been a long-standing demand of the Israelis. The US Congress has passed a bill as
what would be implications of that?
The implications would be the Organization of Islamic Conference members, 56 plus, they would take certain measures led by Saudi Arabia. Number two, the UN mechanism also could be open, General Assembly resolution there. You have 132 countries supporting the Palestinian cause on the East Jerusalem issue. And thirdly, a resolution in the UN Security Council also could be brought, wherein this two-state solution could be proposed, as Mahmoud Abbas has been suggesting, and America may remain silent on that. If that resolution is passed, which will be in effect, Israel will be occupying a UN member state. So that will call for sanctions in any future possibility. So all of these possibilities are there. But I think in the immediate future, what would happen is some arms supplies to Israel, some enhancement of the military economic package, $3.8 billion they get. So these are the kind of soups which Trump would be able to give. But he knows at the heart that Palestinian issue is at the center, which needs to be resolved, and he has said that the Israeli settlements are not obstacle to peace, unlike Obama, who has been consistent on this issue. But there will be this preference for Israel, and to consolidate its hold and influence in the region, because the other challenge would emerge is from Iran and its alliance.
We will come to that in a bit, but we need to take a break at this point. We'll be back again shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're discussing US President-elect Donald Trump's possible West Asia policy. Dr. Awwad, you wanted to say something about Israel before we went on the break.
Yeah, I think Trump was promising that he will shift the embassy into American embassy into Jerusalem. But I believe the ecstasy among the Israeli leaders should not be that much. They should recalculate their measurement for the future of Palestine and the future of Israel, because two-state solution is the only solution to make a tranquility in the region.
Okay. I just wanted to add one sentence. The Israeli Education Minister, Naftali Bennett, you know, as soon as Trump was elected, he went on record in public saying that the era of a Palestinian state is over.
Do you agree with him? Yes or no?
No, I don't think so, because it will create more problems.
Exactly, exactly. Professor Kalha, let's talk about Iran. How problematic would the Trump presidency be for Iran, and would Trump be able to move away from Iran and impose additional sanctions on Tehran and take the allies along with him?
See, the problem that the United States faces is that, of course, the Republican Party, if you recall, even during President Obama's time, had passed a resolution. In fact, they're even gone to the extent of conveying to the Iranian leadership that don't enter into this agreement because we will null it as soon as it is within our power to do so. Of course, the option is always there. They can renege on the agreement, on the Iranian nuclear agreement. But the dilemma which the United States faces is that there are other 5 parties too also, particularly those from Western Europe. And there is China, there is Russia. Now, it is quite possible that if the United States withdraws, these other countries may not do so. In other words, they will continue with having a normal relationship with the Iranian government, which means that all the economic benefit will start flowing to those four or five countries, and the United States will be left out. So I think this dilemma which the United States faces is a very acute one, and perhaps that is what is going to make them hesitate a little before he does so. But on the other hand, there is sufficient domestic pressure, not only from his Republican Party, but also from his own constituents who have voted him in for a very hardline policy towards not only Iran, but sometimes, you know, it goes into xenophobia, and that is something which is very dangerous as far as this part of the world is concerned.
Okay. Professor Pasha, let's talk about the Gulf countries. How do the Gulf countries view or would view Trump presidency, and how do they view him? Do they see him as someone who's negatively inclined towards Iran and therefore positively towards them, or do they see him as an Islamophobe who will continue the negative policies of the US in the region?
Just one line to Iran. You see, the nuclear agreement was endorsed by the UN Security Council. We should remember that. And even if the new president withdraws, it will have no meaning unless and until the UN Security Council reviews the entire thing. Coming to the Gulf countries, I was going through the Gulf newspapers yesterday, and some of them pointed out what Trump had said about 10 years ago when he had proposed that he would contest, and that was, why should we safeguard the Gulf monarchies to protect safe and secure oil supplies to Japan and other allies? This is what Trump said. And it converts this logic, if you convert, will mean that the American security cover for the monarchies is going to be reviewed, because America has troops in all of these countries, including the naval base in Bahrain, which is the bedrock of American policy in this region. And given the kind of statements which are emerging, these monarchs are quite nervous, not only because of what Trump has said and what he could do, but also because of his statement that he will deal with Russia concerning Syria and with Iran. And this leaves Iran as a major power along with Israel. So they are sandwiched between two non-Arab countries to fend for themselves.
And
so
on top of that, he's an Islamophobe.
Exactly. So, I mean, the kind of statements he made on Muslims and terrorism and, you know, all of these issues, if you add up to all of that, there is a sense of nervousness among the countries in the Gulf. And also the low oil prices has added to their woes.
So we are running out of time, so let me move to another region with you, another country with you, Dr. Awwad. How could Trump end the war in Yemen, where Syria, the Saudis, the Iranians are involved through their proxies or even directly, and where Al-Qaeda and ISIS are expanding their influence?
Well, you spoke of 3 countries, but you didn't speak of the 62 countries that Saudi has led aggression on the poorest of the poor country in the world, that they have really destroyed.
Well, I said
Yemen.
Saudis.
I mean, the Saudi led, but you must also remember that he accused the Saudis and the Qataris of funding the Clinton Foundation, interfering in the American foreign policy, rising of ISIS in the region. All these factors will play a major role in the Trump mind, because, and I have a picture of Trump, actually. I was trying to look, this is a picture of him. I don't know if the cameraman can focus on this. This is when he visited Iran during the time of the Shah, where he wanted to open a casino. So the man is a casino, is a bar activist and conscious on these issues, so he doesn't want to believe in the extremism and the radicalism. So therefore they have to open, and they start throwing their hijab out of their window.
So you're saying he's a liberal that people are scared of?
He is a liberal, and he wanted to make sure that you do not go with that long beard to meet him.
Okay, but what will he do in Yemen?
Yemen, he will not do anything at the moment. The Saudis already dragged into a long war, and they are begging for stopping this war, because they are dragging their money out. They have been drained out $200 million a month. They are paying the bill. So therefore, how long they can pay?
Okay. Mr. Kalha, let's talk about Iraq. What can Trump do to ensure that Iraq remains united as a pluralistic society, gives dues to all its religious minorities and ethnicities?
See, the problem which the Americans have with Iraq is a very long-standing one. The problem basically is a strong Iraq is unpalatable to them because of various reasons, because it tends to have aggressive intents on its neighbors. But on the other hand, a weak Iraq is also subject to pressure from the neighboring countries. Yep. Now, their dilemma is, what do you do? Either do you have a strong Iraq, a strong centralized government Iraq, or do you have a weak Iraq? This dilemma has been there for the last several decades. They have not been able to resolve it. So you see this yo-yo swings.
For the attack on Mosul, they've been able to put together Shias, Sunnis, Kurds, everybody.
Yeah, but that's
Will this survive after the capture of Mosul?
For the period that when you are doing the attacking, but they still haven't resolved who will administer the city once they occupy it. I think that problem still remains.
Okay, so we've run out of time. Just one line answer from all of you to the question that, do you think that the Gulf countries can resolve their problems locally, regionally, by talking to each other? Or do they have to be dependent on the US, because it's US intervention which has created all these policies? Beginning with you.
The Gulf countries will be unable to resolve because there are very strong conflicting points among them. Oman, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Gulf, so on and so forth.
All right.
So America has to be there as an arbiter.
The American administration, they feel the Gulf is as an asset, but they become also a liability in the international community, looking into their support of the terrorist organization all over the world. So Wahhabism, Sufism, Salafism is already spreading all over Europe and the United States. And I think the Saudi and the Qataris in particular, they have to tighten their belt.
I think you will see more of the same, because I don't see much change taking place, because I think ultimately American interests will dominate, and perhaps Trump will have to withdraw some of his rather vitriolic statements which he was making when he was as a candidate. So I think you will see a very different Trump as president.
But you're saying that American interests will remain what they were earlier.
Absolutely.
Only the accent on how to promote them will change.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
On that note, we must end this program because we've run out of time. I'd like to thank Dr. Waiel, Awwad, Professor A.K. Pasha, Ambassador R.S. Kalha for participating in this discussion. That is all we have for you today. We'll be back again as usual next week. Until then, goodbye and thanks for joining India's World.